Quack, 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 quack. Well then, I am your host, Adam Shamayo.
And I'm Aaron Schroeder.
That is right, and this is the Quack-12 podcast, the most unofficial Oregon Ducks podcast on the web footosphere. And Aaron, breaking news.
Oh, shit.
People already know about this, like, for days.
I don't. Breaking news to me. Come on.
Breaking news to you.
Blow my mind, baby doll.
That's the nice thing when one host is not paying attention to the subject matter of the show, is everything is breaking news at all times.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I'm a newborn. Every week, I'm a brand newborn baby.
Literally, last fucking week, we talked about how to say Oregon. So, like, truly, everything is on the table. 7 years in or whatever.
Oh my God.
Aaron, we got a wonderful...
Sorry, but really quick, speaking of which, watching that intro, man, my look used to be something ferocious. I miss that guy.
We're gonna
that
add...
guy. I need to get him back.
This is like the next season, so I think we need to add something to the title sequence. So that's like the most fun thing about binging a show is seeing the new opening, you know?
Sure.
And I assume people binge the Quack-12, yeah. Aaron, we got news. Well, first of all, we got a wonderful guest coming up. Basically the third host of this podcast, Hythloday,
the main host,
to Quack. The main host, yeah. We just fill in time until he gets here. Hythloday will be on the show, but Aaron, there's a second billboard. There's a second Bo Nix billboard. I repeat.
What?
The first one was in Manhattan. That was obviously calling back to Joey Harrington. Scratch that, Joey Heisman. It felt like, a throwback. It's New York. It still felt like a big thing.
Yeah,
I thought it was going to end there. But Aaron, technically there's kind of two billboards because we went to Dallas. Dallas fucking Texas. That is right. This one I feel like is even more recruiting centered. I mean, they're all just a big old recruiting
you
tool.
think so? Okay.
And here we go. Bing, bang, boom. Look at that. Two billboards. One is just his disembodied arm.
It seems like you're supposed to... Where are you standing when you're in the correct location to make them connect? See, somebody's standing in the wrong spot.
I've heard that they don't really... I'm not sure if there is. I'm sure there is a position where it would line up perfectly. But I kind of think they went for that Stretch Armstrong look on purpose.
Okay, to show that he can go the distance. Like he's got a long arm.
Yeah, he's really Mr. Incredible look.
Well,
or Mr. Fantastic, sorry.
I have to say, Dallas is lame.
Oh, you heard it here first.
Boom. Put it out there.
Hey, it's a little less lame now that we got Bodacious there.
Are other teams also doing this kind of stuff?
No, that's why it's good.
That's why it's weird. We're really trying to solidify this whole we will do anything to remain the bad guy. Like it's kind of a I love it.
I mean, we're going to the Big Ten. I don't think we're actually the bad guys will hold up when we're going against. Yeah.
Nope. We're going to be going against like mean dudes.
Oh yeah,
we're gonna. How long do you think we're gonna look like little puppy dolls whenever we get over there?
Who knows, man? Who knows? Well,
crazy.
I had to show you that, especially.
I love that news. Thank you for that share, sir. Thank you.
Of course. Speaking of sharing, why don't you share the Quack-12 podcast with all your friends, including our Twitter handle at Quack-12 Podcast. Find us over on that terrible fucking site called X now. Also, we have a TikTok. Yes, right, youngins. I know this is pretty cool
TikTok
stuff.
is a coming.
It's a real vibe over there on our Quack-12 podcast TikTok. It's fire, And did I sound young? And of course, a Patreon to help us out.
Yeah, sorry.
But anyways, that's enough plugging. Let's plug our dear friend, our wonderful guest, because this is the Pick'ems episode.
Yeah, baby.
Hythloday of Addicted to Quack. It's wonderful to have you back on. How you doing, buddy?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Football is almost here,
Man.
Hythloday. Football is almost here. How excited are you?
I'm very excited. In fact, there's a Pac-12 team that's playing this coming Saturday. USC is playing San Jose State.
That is right. And it is on the Pac-12 network. And I think that's kind of the reason why the Pac-12 network is dead, is you got a number 16 playing. And I don't know. They're not even selling the rights to it. Yeah, but I am excited. I want to see all these games. Couldn't be more stoked. We also have fans of the Quack-12 podcast that are excited that you were coming back on because it meant some of their questions could finally be answered.
Oh.
Now, we got two of them. I'm going to try to shout them out pretty quick. First of all, another friend of the show, James Voss, at Who's the Voss, asked the question, who isn't a wide receiver and isn't named Terrence Ferguson or Bucky Irving, but could be a real receiving threat? It's really limiting at that point. But Hythloday, you got anyone that comes to mind right off the bat there who you're excited to see?
Not a tight end. Not Terrence Ferguson and not named Bucky Irving and isn't a wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Noah Whittington.
Yeah.
He caught, I think, 33 passes last year.
That's what
yeah.
I was thinking, too. I mean,
Oregon did throw a bunch of balls to its running back. Yeah, he caught 22 passes for 7.7 yards per reception. There you go.
I'll shout out. Josh Connerly is going to catch a touchdown pass at some point. So that's
Patrick Herbert might step up. You know, we'll see. Kenyon Sadiq, as the true freshman, might step up. As a split out receiver. Casey Kelly has been getting some good camp reports. I actually liked his hands quite a bit when I did my film study of him at Ole Miss.
Right.
He was effectively their starting tight end for like 3 years. Although, like, boy, that's a wacky story. You'll have to read my article for that one. Because like Lane Kiffin runs a wacky program. Like I did film study on both the offense and the defense for Ole Miss because Oregon got a transfer on both sides of the ball. Tysheem Johnson was the other side of the ball. And like, I do not like how he runs that program. Like if Oregon has a coaching vacancy, and I know people are going to want to talk about Lane Kiffin as a potential candidate, I would not be a fan of that, like, at all.
not a part of the lane train. I get it.
Yeah.
Hyth, we got one more here too. At Nat Fod. I have so many questions for/about him, but I don't think they're what he's on the show for. So instead, can he name a player on each side of the ball that charts out a lot better than fans perceive them to be?
Interesting.
Throwing some curveballs, I know.
That sounds like he's taking shots at me for always talking shit on people.
Yeah, probably. It makes sense.
I already said his name, but Noah Whittington. Like, Noah Whittington is right there with Bucky Irving. Like, I got, I don't know why, but there are some fans who are like, why are you handing the ball to anybody but Bucky Irving? And, like, Noah Whittington's numbers are, like, right there with him. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe that's sort of damning with faint praise. If I don't get to pick him, then maybe the answer is, like, Chris Hudson. Like, he wound up being, he was Oregon's second leading receiver last year. And very reliable. And he's he's 5'11", but for the last 3 years, he has also been able to play as outside receiver. And like that versatility is like important to understanding the wide receiver room, because it means that because Dante Thornton hit the transfer portal, the other guy on the outside across from Troy Franklin is either going to be a true freshman, right, or a redshirt freshman, right? Jurian Dickey, Kyler Casper, Justice Lowe, Ashton Cozart. None of those guys, we've seen those guys before. They're all like blue chips and highly rated, but probably one of those guys is going to pop. But if none of them does, like, unlikely, but if none of them does, Chris Hudson can be that dude. So he could play inside or outside. So, like, get comfortable with the idea of Chris Hudson being like a better player than you think he is, because he is. On defense, the answer is Triquez Bridges. Like as a cornerback, look, is he the most like natural cornerback in the world in terms of coverage? No. There are higher ceiling, better cover corners than that guy. But I have to say, after having watched like a bunch of different cornerback film, including Nico Reed, who I think is a better cover corner than him at Colorado, but is like a lousy tackler. Like the fact that Triquez Bridges never lets you get an inch after you catch the ball, he tackles you like 100% of the time, and like you're going down instantly, is super valuable. It's a totally underrated skill. Dude hauled in 3 interceptions last year. It's not like he's terrible in coverage or anything. Triquez Bridges is better than, he doesn't deserve the flack that fans give him.
I'll throw out for offense Ty Thompson, because there's no way anyone could be as bad as the amount of flack they give Ty Thompson.
If you asked me this question in 2020, the answer would be on offense would be Tyler Shuck, who they're going to face in week 2 against Texas Tech. And
Tyler
whose
Shuck,
film I've
Duck.
been watching the last 2 weeks doing my film review of Texas Tech.
And what do you think?
I think he's definitely the best quarterback that they have. It was funny in 2022, or not funny, sad. Like, he's been injured like the last 2 years. He transferred to Texas Tech in 2021, and then he broke his collarbone 4 weeks in, just like Justin Herbert did in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then he wins the job again in 2022, and he gets injured in the opener against an FCS team. And so they played like 2 different quarterbacks for like the next 8 weeks, and it like confused a lot of people, because they were like, is he the starter? And I'm like, yeah, he's supposed to be the starter, trust me. I watched all that film, because when he comes back at the end of the year, the last 5 games or so, I'm just like, yeah, he's supposed to be the starter. Like, he's so much better than the redshirt freshman, like in terms of head on his shoulders kind of stuff, and like the other quarterback who's like a running quarterback and can't hit the broadside of a barn. And I don't know, man. It's gonna be difficult for me when I write my article about Texas Tech not to be like, "Hey, Oregon fans, you were real jerks to Tyler Shuck. Like, he was a way better quarterback, and y'all were really dumb about this."
Sorry,
well, he'll have an opportunity to make them all eat their words.
Yeah.
In not too long. Now we got
Speaking
some time
of which,
constraints. Yep.
Sorry,
There you go. Here we go. Perfect transition. We've got, once again, this is a tradition at this point, the Quack-12 official, the picks. That is right. The picks are here for the final season of the Pac-12. Holy shit. And honestly, it looks to be an exciting one. There are some damn good teams, some wonderful quarterbacks, terrible defenses. Hold on to your butts is all I got to say. We got the Great Pick'em Challenge. Let's get through these bad boys. Starting with Arizona, the Arizona Wildcats. Now, Jed Fish is getting a lot of credit. Well, Aaron, now, you don't really make your picks off of necessarily the stats, off knowing who these teams are, the personnel, knowing what is going on in general. So I wanted to give you an option. Did you want to make your picks just right off the bat when you see this, just kind of a wave of inspiration, or do you want to wait till the end till you hear Hythloday, me ramble? What do you feel like?
Let me go first. I'm feeling extra connected today. And by the way, I do know what's going on. I just don't need the numbers. The numbers blur things, Adam, don't you know, you see.
Fair enough.
You have to look through the fog to see the city.
All right. So over under 4.5 wins. I won't even show you the schedule. Arizona, what are you thinking?
Over under 4.5 wins for their season?
That's right. What's the universe telling you?
Yeah. Oh, they're going to go over.
Okay. Well, I like the optimism. It would be nice overall because I want them to do well. Especially because they were in such a freaking hole when Jed Fish took over. And they haven't really, gotten to a bowl game or anything, but there's signs of life there, which is what you like to see. Here is their schedule. I mean, obviously we got Northern Arizona, who beat this team not too long ago, just to show you how far they fell. Mississippi State, UTEP, that's their non-con. Of course, for away games, for home games, Washington's going down to the desert. Oregon State's going down to the desert. Utah's going down there. I am still afraid that they may not make a bowl game per se.
Wow.
Just because, but offense is maybe good enough. I'm gonna say they go over 4.5 wins, but won't make a bowl game. I think they're sitting right at that spot. 5 wins.
So we're tied.
Basically, as of right now. Hythloday, what are your thoughts on this team?
That's about where the analytics project them at. Like and from diving their roster, like they basically return almost identically the same offense as they did last year. Like, and I don't think that their offense was really the problem, although they did have sort of a red zone scoring problem because they can't run between the tackles, and so they can't, like, they pass very well between the 20s, but then they sort of have a problem punching it in the red zone. So like, they kind of have a bit of a problem like tacking on the point at the end. But like defensively they were a real mess. And like, credit to Jed Fish, he really like used the transfer portal to process a bunch of dudes out, and try to like upgrade his roster. Like he really went hard at taking a bunch of new dudes, in his defensive front, like a bunch of new defensive linemen, a bunch of new inside linebackers to the point where like I haven't really seen any of these guys play before. Like but like that's the thing, is I haven't seen any of these guys play before. Like, no joke, Justin Flo, who they got from Oregon, like, is the guy I've seen play the most football. And like every Oregon fan knows, like, we haven't really seen him play much football,
Not really.
Like he completely cleared out his defensive front and replaced them with guys who like, really, I'm not kidding. Like some of them are 4-stars, like Daniel Haymouli, for example, a linebacker he got from Washington. He's a 4-star from Washington who basically hasn't played. He had an injury, at Washington. It's like, and it's like that. It's up and down. He got a high 3-star from Michigan, who transferred to Colorado, and then he didn't like what he was seeing at Colorado under Deion Sanders, and so he bailed again. Like, but he's a grad student, so Arizona was able to pick him up. And it's like that all over the place. Like, he got a tackle from Georgia named Bill Norton, who's highly rated, but then Georgia couldn't use him because, but what does it mean if Georgia can't use a blue star? Does it mean that he's actually no good, or does it mean that they're just so overflowing with, so it's like he totally overhauled his front, but like, I don't know if these guys are any good or not. So it's like huge question mark about whether or not he improved his defense. And like, I don't know. I kind of don't like this coaching staff. I kind of like, if I have to make a bet, my bet is going to be, I still think the defense is probably not going to be great. And so I kind of think this is going to be like a mediocre to bad defense. And so therefore, yeah, I kind of think they're going to struggle to make a bowl. They do get 2 pretty easy out-of-conference games, although they did lose to Northern Arizona in Jed Fish's, But like UTEP is a terrible team. They actually play this week 0 game against Jackson State, Deion Sanders' old team, and like Vegas can't figure out which team should be favored on that game, which is funny. But yeah, UTEP's real bad. So like that's, those are probably 2 free wins. But then like, man, it's kind of, even though they miss Oregon, it's kind of hard to find wins on this schedule. Like, Stanford is probably going to be bad. So like maybe, and like Colorado, I don't know. Like Colorado is the team that, according to ESPN's like FPI metric, Colorado is their best chance of a conference win. And like, who knows what Colorado is going to be. And their second best chance for a conference win, according to ESPN, is Stanford. And like, yeah, look, I think Stanford's probably going to be bad because like they had to hollow out that team. But like, I don't know, man. But otherwise, like their schedule's kind of brutal. Like, where do you find a win here? Washington, USC, UCLA, Utah. Like, it's kind of like, this is a tough schedule, man. Like, it's really tough to find 4 more wins for them in order for them to go to a bowl. So, like, and with all the question marks that I have about their defense, like, yeah, man, I'm kind of thinking 5, and like, they really, like, I think they get 2 wins. I think maybe they beat Stanford, and so they're sitting on 3, and then they spend the rest of the season just like, please let us get to the 6th win, and they never get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember Colorado was that for a while. Yeah, I think they're filling that role. Up next, Arizona State, the Sun Devils.
Oh.
One of my favorite mascots of all time. And logos. I like the logo, too. Aaron, what do you got? 4.5 wins. The same amount of over-under for Arizona, which has got to hurt. It's got to be insulting to both schools, I imagine.
I don't think that's happening at all.
So you're saying
I
under.
think they're going to get like 3 wins. 2 even.
I get it. Well, suck. I mean, last season they got 3 wins, so just repeat. Obviously, so Kenny Dillingham taking over. Our old OC is taking over there. Has sparked some interest, got some people excited. Bo Baldwin's now the OC. I always like to think of Vernon Adams Jr. when I hear that name, so that's nice. Brian Ward joins the staff from Wazoo, abandons his own son.
No, that's well. Actually, his son did play defense for them as a walk-on last year, but then he left the team.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But Cameron Ward is not Brian Ward, the defensive coordinator.
Oh, it is. Son. I think we've talked about this in one year.
There was actually 4 different players whose last name was Ward on their 2021.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, so many Wards. We're talking about Batman here. Arizona State. I'm 4.5. This is a tough one. Let's look at this schedule. The hardest road games, I would say, at Utah, at UCLA. Actually, not bad as far as going on the road. Southern Utah, Oklahoma State, Fresno State. That's their non-con. It is not
Fresno
a bad
State's
schedule.
going to beat them. Fresno State's going to have a good team this year.
Nice. Good to know. I like Fresno State. Future Pac-16 team, maybe. Who knows? I will have. I'm feeling optimistic about this. I can see him squeaking out. This is tough, actually. I'm just, for the sake of being different, I'm going over.
Wow.
That is a tough one, though, because their team is a bit in shambles.
You're so wrong.
But
this
don't
is
mind
a
the
school
schedule.
problem. I don't think this was ever. Well, I think it was also a coaching problem, probably. But
oh yeah,
I think this is a school problem. I think they're gonna, they're gonna dinkle out.
The school got in trouble because of the coaching. So there you go. Hythloday, how do you feel about these Sun Devils?
What's the over/under?
4.5.
Okay, so spoiler alert. Like, I'm really jumping ahead of ourselves here. Is to talk about Utah, which is that the news out of camp is that Cam Rising, their starting quarterback, and Brant Keithy, their starting tight end, who both had ACL injuries, are still not practicing.
Ooh, that's horrifying.
And the quarterback, the backup quarterback, who's most likely to have taken the job for Cam Rising, Brandon Rose, is also injured and probably out. And like, when I wrote my Utah preview article this summer, like, the only question that I had about the team was like, what's going on with Cam Rising? And like, because just, to make a long story short, they don't have a team if they don't have Cam Rising. Like, they have a good offense if they have him. They have a non-functional offense if they don't. And they have a completely non-functional offense if they don't have tight ends, because this is Andy Ludwig. Really, Andy Ludwig is the problem, and like, Andy Ludwig can't put on a T-shirt without 2 tight ends to help him, like, and the quarterback to bail him out on third down. He really can't afford this situation, like, at all. And if this turns out to be the case, like, and they, just actively don't it changes all the numbers in the Pac-12 South. Like, because Utah goes from a team that like all the metrics have penciled in as a loss for like all these different teams to a team that like is potentially a win for a bunch of different teams. And ASU is probably the team that like is the biggest beneficiary in the sense that like they like hate Utah now. Like, I don't know, like they've decided to be their rivals because Colorado ain't, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's the game that I would flip to a win column if indeed it is the case that Utah is like a shell of itself.
November 4th, though, so pretty later in the season
Late.
at least. So yeah,
I know that's kind of the tricky one. That's why I'm kind of hemming and hawing about this. The other thing. Well, there's another Utah question, but I'll talk about that. Anyway, like ASU just named Jaden Rashada the starter. That was the other big question that I had about ASU, is that, like, I think that Kenny Dillingham could have screwed up his quarterback situation. Like, they had a bunch of interesting options at quarterback, and I think he should have gone with Rashada, but he could have, made the wrong choice, but he didn't. So, yay. So, yeah, I actually am a little rosier on ASU. I mean, they're going to lose the games that they're supposed to. They're going to lose to USC. They're going to lose to Washington, although they beat them last year, because they don't play in the desert this time.
no desert magic.
But like, man, they got some shots at some of these games. Cause I just like the way that Dillingham's constructed this staff. Like, he didn't, and I like the way that he like confronted this roster as something that needed to get overhauled. Like he didn't succeed nearly as much as he should have. And in fact, like their camp news has they've had some negative camp news, frankly, in terms of like not being able to add some of the guys that they needed to overhaul their defense. So like, I still think their defense is going to be a problem, but like, I actually really like their offense. I really, really like their offense, and playing against some of these like bad defenses that they play against, and they play a lot of bad defenses. Like they might really shock some people. Like, yeah, man, like they might actually do some real damage with that offense.
What are you thinking, over 4.5 or?
No, I'm taking the over on ASU with that offense. Like in terms of like beating teams that you're not expecting them to beat. Like they're going to beat UCLA, for example. Like
I'd love it. That sounds right. Let's check it out. Up next, California, the California.
Wait,
Golden
what did you
Bears.
say, Adam?
I said over.
Okay.
California Golden
That's
Bears. Right. Yeah, we got to keep the pace moving.
Keep it going, baby.
5.5 wins for Cal, which seems kind of crazy to me. Aaron, what do you think?
Right, Cal is. Wait, let me just sit here. Don't give me any information. Let me think about this. Sorry.
All right. Open your third eye to the universe.
5.5 wins for Cal. Ooh, are they going to a bowl game? They are. Cal's going to go over.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're going to a bowl game.
I don't even have to look at it right now. I think no. I think they're going to continue the downward slide of their defense. They made a pretty interesting OC hire finally. Musgrave is out the door. Jake Spavital is in the door. So hopefully they get some kind of the old Sonny Dykes offensive spark in there, but I don't think it'll be enough for them to get to 6 wins. I think they may get 5 wins, but they're going versus Auburn and that terrible coach they have. At North Texas versus Idaho, that's their non-con. Road games at Oregon, at Utah, at UCLA. Stanford shouldn't be too much of a problem, but I mean, compared to California, maybe. I don't see it. I just don't see it. And I still don't think they have the guts to fire Justin Wilcox, especially as an independent or part of the Pac-4. I don't know what they're doing. Hythloday, California, Golden Bears. What's going to happen?
I don't think they make a bowl. Again, which is like terrifying. I don't think they have a quarterback. Like they took some quarterbacks in the offseason. They took the baby Finley. They took Patari from Utah. Like none of these guys have really thrown a pass. I think like the 4 scholarship quarterbacks that they now have in the room have combined to throw, I think, like a dozen passes in college. Like it's just, they don't have a quarterback. And like Spavital needs a quarterback. They're losing wide receivers left and right. They lost Sturdivant, they lost Tommy Christakos, they lost Justin Richard Baker. Those guys are just not on the roster now. They lost Cardwell to injury. They lost one of their cornerbacks, Colin Gamble, to an injury, who's going to miss the season. They didn't do enough to help their offensive line. They had gotten a guy out of the transfer portal, but then he flipped to Louisville. The guys that they did get, Barrett Miller from Stanford sucks. They got a guy from Texas A&M who I don't think is adequate to fix, anywhere close to fix the problems they have in their offensive line. So I think their offense is just going to suck. Still,
hard, dude.
Yeah,
you're tough.
Hard to do offense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think their offense is just going to stink. And I don't even think, and like their defense is sort of their calling card, but I didn't even think their defense was as good as it should have been. And like, it's kind of like they're like a tough team to play in the sense that like not as a strategic, commander as a strategic vision, kind of guy, like guiding the program kind of guy. Like Justin Wilcox is not a good coach, but as on the field guy that you're playing against on Saturday, he's he's kind of like a tough out, in that sense, you sort of God damn it, I got to play Cal this week. In that sense, he sticks around, he gave Washington a real hard time. He gave UCLA a real hard time. Like a bunch of different games, just this game was closer than it should have been. It's because you're playing Wilcox, but you still wind up winning the game, So
I want him to get fired so he can be our DC. I'm going to be real.
That's an interesting theory.
So it sounds like
definitely
if he's
a
not
different
making
defensive structure.
Oh yeah, I don't think that far ahead. So anyway. It sounds like you're not thinking they're going over 5.5. That's for sure.
No, I'm taking. Give me 5 and 7 for those guys all day.
Somewhere out
even
there,
though
Rob
Auburn is definitely a beatable team. People should not be being oh, that's an SEC team. Cal will definitely lose to them because they're an SEC. No, Auburn's not going to be a good team this year. But Cal's still going to lose to them because Cal's a bad team.
Yeah. I mean, Auburn's fans are going to call them commies, and it'll pump up California, and they'll win it. Up next, Colorado. The Colorado Buffaloes could not have more hype on them. At the same time, the over-under is 3.5 wins. It's a pretty unique spot for Coach Prime to be in. Aaron, what do you think about these Buffs? You going to back them? That's right, Deion Sanders, baby.
Oh, yes, I am. I am all in.
Of course. You would be the guy. So you're going over. I mean, it's a low. It's 3.5. It's pretty freaking low, so I get you. Here he is, the man himself, Coach Prime.
I think this dude's gonna get 5 wins.
Wow. That's saying something. I mean,
is it?
At TCU is what
I
we're starting
think he's
with.
being underestimated heavily, right?
Underestimated? I mean, the hype on this dude is nuts. I
feel like I've only heard negative Nancy's. Sorry.
Well, that's true. I mean, he's also getting some hate, too, because of the hype, that kind of thing,
Right. Okay.
Pretty tough non-con schedule for Colorado, I would say. At TCU, who was in the playoffs last season.
They suck.
You hate them, I know. And then Nebraska, which is that is the true rivalry, not Utah. They hate each other. Colorado, Nebraska, it is ancient hatred there. September 16th, then Colorado State, still, a rival. They're playing every single year. I don't know much about Colorado State at all, but I know about Colorado.
They don't play every year, but they, sure.
They try to or something like that. And then 70 people, I do believe, have left this roster, and there's a lot of talent that is an upgrade, but a lot of it is either a lateral move or just a straight up loss. It's not all upgrade, that's for sure. So huge roster turnover, historic roster turnover. They play at Oregon, they play at Arizona State, at UCLA, at Washington State, at Utah. Those are some tough places to play. Right off the bat, I'm just looking at here really quick. I feel like there are potential 4 wins if everything went exact. I don't know.
4?
I'm actually going to say I think they will be able to get 4 wins. And that still seems like maybe I'm reaching a little bit, but I'm going to buy the hype. I think they're exactly at 4, which would put them over. Hythloday, how do you feel about Coach Prime's monster he's building over there?
I still think that I'm taking the over. There are a number of questions to resolve. I mean, it's more difficult to resolve questions about Colorado than any other team, simply because like these guys haven't played together. Like the way that you framed it, I think is the right way. Like if you just look at the roster, like if you sort of wipe away the fact that like these all come in from different, programs and so forth, and just look at their like talent level and their level of experience and the level of production and where they played, and just look at it as sort of a math problem, like they look like the roster of a middle of the pack, Power 5 program, Pac-12 program. They look like the equivalent of your Oregon State, of your Cals, of your Arizona States, et cetera. And so, predicting them at like 2 or 3 wins is like totally inappropriate. Like they, it's a somewhere between 4 and 6 win, team, because that's where their talent level is. And you just sort of have to modulate for the difficulty of their schedule. And then it's sort of difficult because it's like, hey, 2 of the teams in their non-con, TCU and Nebraska, are like themselves really difficult to predict. Like, yes, TCU was in the national championship game last year, but like everybody who watched that team was like, something weird is going on. This team is like way over its skis, and then they lost like everybody, and it's like, holy crap, man! Like, what would happen if Dion beat him? In
last season, this Colorado team with a bunch of different players really held TCU to a close game.
I know. They actually like, people sort of forget that, but that game was fairly tight. Fairly late. And then like Matt Rule taking over Nebraska. Like it's not like Nebraska's been in great shakes. Like, dude, like I'm not saying this is definitely gonna happen, but like it's not like insane. Like, it would be insane if it, in terms of the media hype, but Colorado could come, could play Oregon with a 3-0 record.
I'd love it.
Like, yeah, it is entirely within the realm of possibility that occurs. Like the team that he actually did, set aside whatever morally, I guess, you think about like processing out 70 dudes. Like the job that he did of turning over the roster and replacing them with like basically replacement level or better, guys, was actually a pretty competent job. Like I have some, there's some position areas that I'm not sold on and I got some questions about, but like this is actually a pretty competently assembled roster, all things being considered. And like, I expect, somewhere between 4 and 6 wins, depending on the difficulty of the rest of the schedule.
There you go.
And
if he gets 6 wins,
with
he's
the
gone.
big question mark being like, we don't know how guys who have never played together are going to play together. Like that's the experimental factor. Like every other team that's ever existed are guys that like they more or less like 70% of them played together last year, and they're sort of like a team culture that it's iterative. And this is not an iteration. This is like wipe the slate clean, and Deion Sanders is coming in. It's like we don't know what effect that might have on things.
Right. I think, if anything, the way I view it is like this is his, what is that, the Bad News Bears or whatever?
Yeah.
Where it's really like the solidification of these guys becoming like a unit is in the mere fact that their leader is Deion Sanders.
I mean, that's what they're
Right.
betting on.
I kind of have just like these visions of him
too,
like pacing the locker room, just like going into like deep tirades of amazing shit.
But
There-
like
there was a video-
all the haters, like
Yeah.
like all. I'm not saying that the haters are right, but the argument that the haters make is that like that shtick is not adequate and may even be counterproductive to team cohesion.
Sure.
know?
Sure.
There was a
Yeah.
video of a little scruffle during a practice where like two Colorado players were kind of like jawing each other, fighting a little bit, and some players walked away. And afterwards, Deion Sanders basically said like, "You never walk away from a fight when your teammate is in a fight." So it's a unique energy going on there. I love it. Wow,
Yes,
all of us got it over.
I mean, when he came to the Cowboys, dude,
Mm-hmm.
it was like, dude, this guy is ferocious out there.
Prime. He's prime, baby.
intense.
If
Love
he gets
it.
to a bowl game, he's gone. I'll tell you that much. That's what I think. Oregon, over under 9.5 wins. I could take this as an opportunity for us to get back some time so we can talk about other teams, because I'm thinking, 12-0, baby. We're going to the national championship. We're going to win it this year. What do you think, Eric?
Wow. No, I actually think we're going to have 11 wins this season.
Oof, okay.
Like, I think we're going to for real have it. And the one is going to be like a weird wake-up call one.
Colorado.
Maybe it's the Deion Sanders one.
That'd be a weird wake-up call.
Yeah, totally.
Hyth, we will have plenty of time to talk Oregon with you throughout the season, but any like overall lingering thoughts on this? Or?
I mean, I make the same prediction for Oregon that I do every single year, which is give me 10 wins, because you can't predict 12. Like, 12's just bad luck.
I just did, but yeah.
Thanks, Adam.
So, like, 11-1 is what you're always hoping for.
Right.
And then you're always going to be disappointed. So give me 10. Well,
There you go.
They're always going to lose one game where you smack your forehead.
Yeah.
And if
right.
you don't smack your forehead, then, like, hey, hooray.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you the toughest road games, definitely at Washington, at Utah. Those will be huge. Those sound like a game that could definitely be a loss. But otherwise, non-con, Portland State, at Texas Tech, Hawaii, knock on wood, but shouldn't be too much of a problem.
The statistical prediction formulas think that Oregon's going to have a really hard time with Texas Tech. I've been watching their film. Texas Tech doesn't really scare me, not that much. I mean, there are, read my article, there are lots of things that are interesting about Texas Tech. But ultimately I think this stat sort of is telling. They recruited at about a 0.83 level, which is a low 3-star. The significant thing for them is that their defense was really good. Actually, for anybody who's thinking this is like a high-flying Big 12, team, actually, really, they were a defense-led team last year. Like, really, their defense really outshone their offense, and really, their defense made their offense look better than it was, and their offense made their defense look worse than it was in terms of, like, turnovers and field position. Like, their defense kept handing the offense good opportunities, and the offense kept putting the defense in bad spots. And so really, like, statistically, if you look at it, like, it looks like they were kind of even, but no, the defense was much better than the offense. But the thing was, their defense was buoyed by a bunch of diamonds in the rough, like NFL players who they lost to the NFL, and like super seniors, like COVID-based super seniors who, they couldn't retain because they were super seniors, and like they didn't.
Such a weird word.
And all of those guys are gone now. Like, their defense, and it's a Tim DeRuyter defense, which is like interesting. It's not just Tyler Shuck that you get to see again. It's Tim DeRuyter that you get to see again, who's the defensive coordinator that I like a lot. But like the dudes that he loses, are like the guys that are absolutely essential to a Tim DeRuyter defense. Like, you couldn't design better guys to lose from a Tim DeRuyter defense to make his defense function poorly. If you know what I mean. Like, if I got to select 5 starters to remove from a Tim DeRuyter defense, I wouldn't pick 5 any dudes differently than the 5 starters that he lost. Like, so I really think his defense is probably going to take a pretty big step back, and that was buoying his team. His quarterback situation is probably going to get more stable, but all the other things on his offense are that were bad are staying the same. Like, his offensive line was absolutely terrible. Like, their wide receivers can't get separation. Like, they're losing their best running back. Like, their play calling was bizarrely weird, which is, I'm getting way ahead of myself. You should read my article about this, the game week. Like, Texas Tech does not, it is a team that doesn't scare me at all. If Oregon loses to Texas Tech, Oregon, it's not going to be a one-off loss. It's not going to be an, oh, shuck, they just went down to Lubbock. Oh, man. It means that this team has serious problems, and they're not just going to lose that one game. It means that Lanning really screwed up in the construction of this team. They're going to lose a bunch of other games.
There you go. Circle that one,
But
fans.
on the other hand, if they beat Texas Tech handily, which is, what they ought to do, then that means, it's a double-digit win season.
Okay, well, that's a huge game then. Oregon
Love that.
State, they hate us. Over under 8.5
Because they
wins.
ain't us.
Because they ain't us, actually, is pretty accurate. Aaron, what do you think? 8.5 wins is a hell of a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Little brother.
That seems dead ass wrong, my friend.
Well, by dead ass wrong, you mean over or under?
Let me talk to the space.
Okay.
8.5, which means it's under.
Under.
It's under.
Well, certainly seems safe. The team that embarrassed us last season, we got their schedule here. San Jose State, who also will be taking on USC in week 0. UC Davis, San Diego State. Wow, who knows, joining this PAC conference, so that may be a conference opponent in the future for the Beavs. Then we got at Wazoo, at Cal, at Arizona, at Colorado. Those are great road games for conference play. And then at Oregon at the very end. Do I see 9 wins here? That is so many. I think they lose to Washington, to Oregon, to Utah. And then I imagine there's a slip up in there. Maybe not. Maybe not. It's all about how optimistic I am. Really about DJU maybe? I think safe bet is under. And I am going with that. Because I think they lose their 3 hardest games, and I think they lose one other game somewhere in there. Though the Beavers were mighty impressive last season. Did they? What do you think, Hythloday?
This one's really tough because, because of their schedule. Because they have a super soft non-con, right? San Jose State, an FCS team, and San Diego State, which it's like 3 free wins. Because San Diego State's going to take a step back this year.
Yeah.
They don't play USC. I think the other South team they miss is Arizona State, which is sort of like a question mark team for me. It's probably a good miss for them. Or at least missing a question mark is good. So soft schedule. And then I definitely think they're taking a step back in the sense that I'm not a believer in DJU, or at least I don't think that Lindgren, their quarterback coach, is going to get anything out of him that Clemson wasn't able to get out of him. I think that he's just a bad quarterbacks coach, and the idea that they're going to extract anything extra out of him is false, and they're just going to get the same level of quarterback play out of him that they've gotten out of quarterbacks for the last 4 years. Ever since Luton went to the NFL, they're going to get that level of quarterback play. But they're going to have an excellent offensive line. They're going to have an excellent running back unit, and Jonathan Smith knows how to use those things, and they're going to face a bunch of really bad rush defenses, and he's just going to smash. I think he's just going to smash 5 teams, plus 3, soft non-con teams, and I think he's just going to, without breaking a sweat, he's going to get 8 wins. From that alone, and then it's just a question. Does he get that 9th win? And it's then, I think he's just going to smash Wazoo, Cal, Arizona, Stanford, and Colorado on the run game, the offensive line run game, factor alone, plus the 3, that's 8. And so then it's just a question of Utah, UCLA, Washington, Oregon. Does he pick up a 9th win from one of those 4 teams? Well, it could be Utah if the problems that I discussed happened. I don't think UCLA fixed their defense. It could be them. Washington's going to have a crap defense that I don't think they fixed. It could be them. Oregon, they did beat with exactly that last year. Man. On the other hand, I really think that Oregon State was, their defense was excellent last year, but it was because of everything I said about Texas Tech. Like, it was a bunch of like super seniors and hidden NFL talent, like, except like on steroids. Like, I mean, not literally those guys were on steroids. Like, I mean, like just magnified by a factor of 2. Like, it was even more guys that they, were losing and were even more super seniory. Like, their defense is going to take a huge step back, and Smith was super complacent about replacing them in the transfer, like gobsmackingly complacent about replacing them. And I guess he trusts his internal development, but like that doesn't work until those guys are super seniors for him. And they're not, who've played for like 5 years, and that's just not what that's going to be in 2023. It might be in like 2026, but that doesn't describe those players right now. So like, I think their defense is going to take a big step back. So like, yeah. So like in between the difficulty of, where does he find that 9th win, and the question of like, well, maybe he doesn't automatically get to 8 because maybe that defense creates a problem. Like maybe Arizona just throws all over him. You know what I mean? Or, so like, I think the safe bet is to take the under, but like, they're going to make me sweat it.
It'll be a close one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. True Oregon Ducks podcast fashion, all of us have the under there. Wonderful to see. Stanford, this is...
I think a lot of people set that 8.5, just because they're projecting this to be the exact same team as it was last year.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's foolish, and it makes me angry. But then when I actually go through the exercise to predict it, I'm like, God damn it, I came to the same conclusion. So
Exactly.
I can't get mad at them,
Exactly. Stanford fans, if they existed, would be maybe mad at this. 2.5 is the over-under for what was once a mighty program, and is now begging to be across the seas or across the land to ACC.
They used to be your favorite team. You loved them for a long time.
Shut up. 3-9 they went last year. Troy Taylor has got a lot. He's got a lot of hats he's wearing too. He's the Andrew Luck director of offense. He's the Bradford M. Freeman director of football, and he's the Kevin Hogan QB coach.
Yes.
So he's got a whole lot to do.
All 3 of his goofball titles.
I absolutely had to write them down. Aaron, 2.5 wins. That's so low. Do you think they're going to win at least 3 games?
Low.
It's so low.
It's so low that it throws off my ability to actually concentrate on what could happen. It's so bad. They have such a bad energy or vibe, if you will.
Mm-hmm. What do you think?
They're stigmatized heavily. I think they're going to get 3 again. I think they'll go over, but they're going to get 3.
I mean, with 2.5, you would assume,
2 games,
like
2
win
games
3 games
seems crazy.
I mean, I'm just looking at the absolute worst. Definitely would be Sac State, Hawaii. That is 2.
That's it. Those are 2.
But then, I think over's easy because I do see. I mean, Wazoo is not a powerhouse. Colorado, despite the hype, is not a powerhouse. Cal is there. I could absolutely see them upsetting Oregon State, or they got Arizona on the schedule. I think I can't see. I think 3 is right about where it's at. Maybe 4 even. There still is talent there, even though it is very hard for them to replace the talent that leaves, because you got to be able to get into Stanford, which is very hard. I hear. I didn't even try. So I think 3 is very much achievable. I think 2.5 is a little bit too low. Hythloday, any chance you taking the under here? I would love to hear it.
No, I'll take the over. I mean, because taking the under requires them going winless in Pac-12 play, which is it's kind of, this is going to sound weird, it's hard to do because there's so many goofballs in the Pac-12. Like the idea that like none of them would slip up against Stanford, it's hard to believe because I do think that Troy Taylor is a good coach. And And I don't think there's enough non-goofballs in the Pac-12 for it to never happen. Like the problem is that like just the personnel doesn't match. Like I don't think he's got a quarterback. I think his best players on offense don't match what he wants to do. I think his offensive line is terrible. I think that he actually did do some good work to fix his defensive front, but his secondary is going to be awful, and he's playing against a league that's got a bunch of really great passing offenses. But like, yeah, I could see him getting into a rock fight with Oregon State, and like, I could see him beating Oregon. I mean, hell, Oregon State needed a miracle last year to beat him by 1 point. Remember that? Where the ball bounced off a dude and a guy gave up.
That was so good.
Arizona State that was like a 1 point like miracle game last year. Like Stanford went 3-9 last year, but there was like weird games against Stanford. So like where there were like 1 point margins. So like the idea that you just like pencil them in for 0-9 in the Pac-12, like no way do they win a game. It's going to be a blowout loss every single time. Like that's too maximalist. Like that they'll win a conference game, and so
that record is reserved for Washington and Washington alone.
Yeah, exactly.
We all know that. Up next, UCLA. 8.5 wins. Old Chip Kelly still down there doing his magic, though it looks a little different than when he did it at Oregon. Aaron, what do you got?
Under.
You're a UCLA hater. I love it.
No. Am I? Maybe I am.
I forget.
I don't know why.
You said you were going to choose a team to hate this season. I forget whether it was UCLA or someone else.
Well, no, I already hit UCLA hard last year.
That's true.
They got a pummeling.
Coastal Carolina, I would love for Coastal Carolina to be good because I always love when they are good. They're a fun team to watch. At San Diego State, who's, as Hythloday said, taking a step back. North Carolina Central, who is a team I have heard about today. As far as the road games in conference play, at Utah, at Oregon State, at Stanford, at Arizona, and at USC. So you get some good, you get some bad. Facts of life. 8.5. So let's see if I got some guaranteed losses here. Maybe at Utah. It's not guaranteed, but I could see it.
Yeah, except
wow.
Asterisk around Utah, and it'll be early, right? It's their first conference game, right? It's week 4.
That is very true. 8.5 is pretty high, but
it's
really looking at their schedule,
it's a baby. They miss Oregon, they miss Washington.
It's babier than the baby blue we got on the screen right now. It really is, and Chip is. I mean, he's not like this god or anything, but he just got a great idea from offense.
You're right. There's a game on here that he'll be favored to win that he'll get upset because it's Chip Kelly. And
honestly,
no
maybe Coastal
bigger
Carolina
expert in outsmarting Chip Kelly than Chip Kelly.
That's a very good way to put it. But I could see, even if it was 9.5 wins, I would maybe take that over. Just because this schedule, man. Yeah, like I guess I got faith in the good old Chip.
Like other than USC, their hardest game was Utah, but Utah may not have their quarterback or tight end in week 4. So yeah, man.
Pretty interesting. Would you also go over here? Sounds like it.
What's the number?
8.5.
Let me do math.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah, give me the over. I think this is a 9-win team. I don't think they'll deserve to be a 9-win team. It's a total schedule artifact, but they scheduled 3 cupcakes in the non-con. Utah took themselves out of it with the injury. They don't get Oregon or Washington. They can sleepwalk their way to 7.
Yeah.
No, they can
easy.
sleepwalk their way to 7.
If I were to put money on any of these,
they just got to find 2, which shouldn't be a challenge. Yeah.
Out of all of them, I'd put actual real money on that one. USC.
I don't actually think they're going to be a significantly better team. In fact, actually, I think they're going to be slightly worse team than they were last year because they lose DTR and Charbonnet, and I don't think the guys that they got to replace them are better. In fact, I think that their camp battle right now between I think the fact that they can't just settle on Dante Moore is probably like exactly a sign of what I predicted, which is that they're not going to that Dante Moore is not going to wind up being their starter at the end of the year, and he's going to wind up transferring out because Chip Kelly doesn't know how to use a pocket passer. The fact that Ethan Garbers is apparently the guy who's is kind of a bad sign, frankly, because like it either should have been Schlee, who'd be sort of the poor man's version of DTR for Chip Kelly's offense, or it should have been what's his name, the talented guy Justin Martin, I think, that we talked about with in our interview with the UCLA writer from the B team, Michael Hanna. But like apparently, if he's not being mentioned at all in the camp race, it means there's still butterflies between his ears, which means like they've really got a problem at their quarterback room, which and the one thing that Chip Kelly had going for him, I mean, like one thing. No, he had two things. The other one was Zach Charbonnet. But the other thing that he had going for him was DTR. For 5 years, he had DTR going for him, was the best athlete that he had in the field for all 22 players was DTR. And like he's going to have that trump card taken away from him. And it's going to be replaced by problem. Like trump card to problem is a big deal. And so like, there's this team's probably going to be somewhere between the same to worse, but their win-loss record is going to get better because the schedule is just, it's baby soft, man.
I get you. Okay. We're in the final stretch. We'll hurry through these so no one misses any of their important dates. USC over under 9.5 wins. Aaron, that is very high. 9.5 wins. This is the team with the most hype, I would say, in the Pac-12.
Really?
People have them in the playoffs even.
Wow.
Heisman winner Caleb Williams leads them in returns. What do you think,
Wow.
Aaron? 9.5 wins?
I don't know. You just blew my mind. You gave me facts, and I didn't need them.
Sorry.
I think they will go under.
I mean, 9.5 is pretty high.
9. They get 9.
9 versus San Jose State versus Nevada versus, or where's that other one? Notre Dame. At Notre Dame. Those are your non-cons there. First two should be gimmies, you would hope. It would be pretty funny to get a week 0 loss, but who cares? Road games at ASU, at Colorado, or Notre Dame, as I said, at Cal, and at Oregon. Overall, pretty easy schedule. I mean, Notre Dame is always a big one for this team.
God dang it.
Well, I don't know, man. Do I see some? I mean, I hope they lose at Oregon, obviously. That's probably their toughest challenge, along with Notre Dame. So that would be 2 losses. And then it's all about, do you think one of these teams, if those 2 things were to happen, one of these teams can upset them? I mean, certainly UCLA could versus Utah. Utah did last time. Embarrassing fashion. So, I mean, if I go under, it's only because I want it to be true. But if one injury to Caleb Williams or something, that certainly would put a damper on things.
Wow, why would you go that dark? That's so dark.
Hey, it happens, buddy.
You went straight to injury.
Yeah, because I wish bad luck on these people. No. I will go, unfortunately, over. I don't want it to be true, but I'm going to go over, which that could include a win at
saved
Oregon.
my life here. Tell me I still have a connection to the universe, Hyth, please.
What do you think, Hyth?
No, I mean, look, I mean, 9.5 is the number?
Yes.
9.5 means they could lose to Notre Dame and Oregon and still go over. You know, like the next nearest loss would be Utah, and there's lots of reasons to doubt they're going to lose Utah for a third time. And not just Cam Rising related reasons. It's too long to get into. I don't think Utah's going to beat him again. But they can lose 2 and still win 10. And, they don't play Oregon State. I don't think Oregon State's defense would have put up the same fight as they did last year, but they don't play good. Oregon State this year. They other than Notre Dame, they don't play a challenging non-con. Their new game is Washington. Washington's defense is not going to pose a challenge to USC's offense. And none of the teams that they did play last year other than Utah posed a challenge to USC's offense. And frankly, Utah's defense didn't pose a challenge to USC's offense. They put up 50 points on them, until Caleb Williams got hurt, which is obviously the answer to any question. Like, well, what if the quarterback get hurt? But that's true of any team. Like, you shouldn't count that.
Same with Oregon.
They're gonna win 10 games. The only question is whether or not they win 11.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. Utah, we've talked about this team quite a bit, actually, throughout the other ones. 8.5 wins. Aaron, what do you think about these Utes with all the injuries and stuff possibly looming?
God, man, I feel so discombobulated. I feel so thrown off. I have to say, I think I've been listening to Hythloday too much this episode, and I have to say under, because he's got me thinking they're underwhelming.
Well, with this, I'm going to hope that everyone's healthy, because starting it off with Florida is a tough one. Then at Baylor. Then you got Weber State. But still, Florida and at Baylor, those are some tough ones, especially if you got some injury questions here. At Oregon State, at USC, at Washington, at Arizona. Washington, USC, those are tough road games. They also play Oregon. 8.5. Do I think there's 4 losses on here? I think there's even with everyone healthy, I can imagine 4 losses.
Wow.
Do I think I'm going to buck what Aaron said, go against him just to hopefully add some points here. I'm going over, but I think 9 wins may kind of be there. I don't think they're going over 9 wins. That's for sure. Aaron, Hyth, what do you think? I mean, I know, again, all the questions we've been talking about are going to play a huge factor in it.
What's the number?
8.5.
Oh, give me the under on that.
There you go.
Yeah, I think they're... I mean, I'll just go out on a limb. I think they're going to lose to Florida and Baylor. I think they're going to lose to UCLA. I think they're probably going to be 1-3 going into the Oregon State game.
Wow.
I don't know how that's going to go. I mean, they throttled Oregon State last year because Utah's run game is really good, and people don't really understand this, but Oregon State's run defense is not good at all, and I think they're just going to run all over Oregon State, and I think they're sort of going to start clawing back at that point. I think they'll beat Oregon State. That'll take them to 2-3. I think they'll beat Cal. Because you don't need a quarterback to beat Cal. That'll take them to 3-3. I think they'll lose to USC again. That'll be 3-4. I think they'll lose to Oregon. That'll be 3-5. And then ASU, I already talked about that game, right? That's 3-6. And now, that's scary territory. I think this team might miss a bowl. I think they might need to I don't know what they do to Washington. They might run all over. I think they might come out of that Arizona State game at 3-6 and need to whomp Washington with their run game, which is entirely possible, and then beat Arizona and Colorado just to make a bowl.
Wow.
Because of what their quarterback situation puts them into for the first 4 weeks of the year.
I love that.
You went apocalyptic, my dude.
I'm not trying to be apocalyptic. I'm trying to tell you what Andy Ludwig plus not having a quarterback and a tight end does to their offense. There's also it's complicated, and you need to read my Utah preview to understand all of it. It's way more than we have time to talk about. But I think their defense is going to have some issues. I'm not saying their defense is going to be bad, but I think it's going to have particular issues defending against particular teams because of certain personnel losses that they had and the way that they have to manage their personnel, which is very... Because of the way that they have to deal with missionaries coming back, it's super complicated. You have to read my article for it. But I think their defense is going to have a difficult time with certain teams. Yeah.
All right. Well, here we go. We got 2 more. We got very little time, so we're just going to run through this kind of as an insult as them as well. Washington Huskies over under 9.5 wins. They are ready.
Over.
Aaron, quick. Over.
I
hate it. Aaron is now a Husky fan. I've never been more disappointed in him. I wish he was my son so I could disown him. 9.5 wins.
God.
just so we don't lose all credibility as a biased Duck, Duck podcast. I'm immediately saying under, even though this is a good team. Hopefully Boise State immediately takes them out. Then Tulsa does. Then at Michigan State they lose to their future conference friend there. But I mean, who knows? This is actually a pretty solid team. Kalen DeBoer's a great coach, but they lost some people in their defense. Ain't no good. But they may be good enough to beat us. What do you think, Hyth? 9.5. Pretty high.
I mean, I think there are 7 games they can't lose. I think there are 5 losable games. And so, 9.5, boy, that's tough. You can find 3 losses on this schedule. You can find 3 losses on the schedule pretty easily. But whether they will actually lose them has to do more with those teams than it does with Washington. Like they play Utah real late in the year. Is Cam Rising going to be back for that game? They didn't play USC or Utah last year. So, how do those games go? Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what the DeBoer versus Riley game looks like. I don't know what the DeBoer versus Whittingham game looks like. It was a close game against OSU last year. They may be playing Aiden Childs, at that point. All 3 of those games are November games. ESPN thinks that Michigan State is going to beat Washington in East Lansing actually pretty comfortably. Wow. I'm not sure what they're basing that on because I watched Michigan State's games last year as part of my Big Ten charting project. I'm not sure what they're basing that on.
I definitely watched one.
Yeah, I don't know. That's Washington's sort of like a poor man's USC, to be perfectly honest, where they have this unstoppable offense between the 20s, but they have a bit of a problem scoring in the red zone, and their defense stunk, and then they didn't do anything to fix their defense. So it's they're kind of a one-trick pony in that sense, and if you have the guts to figure out how to stop them, you can kind of grind that team to a halt. It's just that I don't know that they play a lot of teams that have the guts of the brains to figure out how to stop them. So, it's kind of 9.5 is actually a pretty good number for them given their schedule. And like I said, it's much more Washington, I feel is the most known quantity team to me of anybody in the Pac-12. It's really much more of a function of everybody else on the schedule who I got big question. Who's Michigan State this year? Who's Boise State this year? Who's Oregon State this year? Who's Utah this year? All of these I feel are who's Arizona State this year? All of these teams feel like way bigger questions to me than Washington. That's why I have a tough time nailing exactly whether their number is 9 or 10.
But we're forcing you. Which one is it, 9 or 10?
Give me 9.
Oh,
nice.
You dirty dog.
I love it. And in true college football fashion, what you do is you just shit all over Wazoo and then you forget about them. Apparently, that's what you do. So Washington State, 6.5 wins. They got them going to a bowl game, Aaron. Where do you got them? Up?
Under.
Down? Under for you. I'm looking at this schedule real quick. Looking at this, do I see 7 wins? No. Under. That easy.
Under. Their defense gets worse. Their offense gets worse.
There you go. I actually like just ending it truly that quickly with Wazoo. Real and so sorry, Jeff Newser. College football has been cruel enough to Wazoo fans, so we figure we.
I mean, they lost the linebackers who were the big surprise for them last year. The good linebackers who were the big surprise from last year. They lost their wide receivers, and in both of those units, the replacements that they got are not as good. So, defense gets worse, the offense gets worse.
There we have it.
They got
snuck it under the wire. But
the poor Cougs, they're the victims of the transfer portal in a way that other teams aren't. They tried to victimize other teams, but they're G5 teams with lower quality players. So sorry, Cougs.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but it's very fortunate that we were able to have Hythloday here of Addicted to Quack on the pod. Could not be happier, and we hope to have you on, basically every single week for a while while college football's going.
It's about time that you take over the main feed again.
Yeah.
Well, Aaron, it was great talking to you. I missed you over the summer, man.
I know.
I like to keep you separate,
I'm excited to have my brain back.
There you go. Please go over to Addicted to Quack to find Hythloday's work. It's a wonderful website. You will not find a better Oregon Duck site when it comes to analyzing this team. Certainly not this podcast. Also, go over to @Quack-12 Podcast on Twitter, @Hythloday1 on Twitter, @Addicted to Quack on Twitter, and go give us money right now over on the Quack-12 Patreon. I demand it. Hythloday, any final words while we send you on your way?
We just hired a couple of new writers at Addicted to
Guess
Quack.
not. Yeah, there you go. Quack's a good one. Holy shit, you hear that? It's all slowing down. Oh,
yeah.
Listeners, we'll see you next week. Couldn't be more excited for the football. We'll have actual Pac-12 football to talk about even. It's going to be nuts. That being said, we love ya. Bye.